Hi everyone, my name is Matt. I'm from Dog and Bone Consulting, and as part of our Tech Wednesdays, where we're giving NFPs and government some tips and advice on how to leverage technology and how to deal with remote working in this age of social distancing. Today I'm going to talk about Microsoft Teams. Like most of you who are trying to work from home, as you can see, I've got the kids' artwork in the study, and you can probably hear them in the background with homeschooling. So I know we're all trying to work from home remotely at the moment. So luckily, that Dog and Bone had already invested in Office 365 and we're using Teams. And I know a lot of not-for-profits and government are using it as well. I think there's 44 million people using Teams right now in March. So it's becoming very popular, and I think will even become more and more popular. But what we're also seeing is that how people use it differs greatly because it's such an easy tool to use. So what today's about is my top tips for how to use it best and things to think about before you start using it for those who haven't used it yet. So the four top tips for today is plan, purpose, pilot, and process. So the first one is plan. So obviously what that means is just really sitting down and having a think of it before you go too far with going off and creating hundreds of teams. So I think one of the troublesome parts and the great parts about Teams is users are empowered to create as many teams and set things up however they want. So, which is great. However, what we're seeing is that can cause some issues with spreading your information everywhere, creating a lot of new libraries and locations to store new information that once that project's over, that information can get lost if you're not careful. So what we're encouraging people to do is just plan out the architecture of how you set up a team and when you set up a team and how that fits in with your existing systems. If you're already using SharePoint or Dropbox or a file server or something like that, I think the idea is try and tie it in and integrate it with your existing information management instead of creating a whole new ecosystem where you tend to create duplicates of documents stored in Teams that are already stored somewhere else on your intranet or wherever it may be. So that's just one thing to be careful of. The other one is purpose. So for every time you create a team, it's got to have a clearly defined purpose of why you're using it and who's using it. What I've often seen is people setting up one team for just storing a few documents and sharing them internally, whereas that could be easily done via a OneDrive or something a lot more simple and an existing system. So the other key one is having that clear purpose and what's the user going to experience when they're in that team, what tabs and channels and what other apps should be integrated with it. So having a clear purpose around each team or each series of teams, of when you use Teams and when you don't, and when you use other systems. The other one is pilot and play. So I know this is what a lot of you have been doing, is going off and dumping information in there and going off and using it. But what I'd usually recommend is engage a few key people, like a couple of champions, who can really use it and empower them to set up a couple of examples of teams that you can use, for a week or two even, and use it really well, get the right apps and right integration and right use of Teams. And once that's established to work, use that as a case that then you can broaden it out before you go off and set Teams up for all your staff and then realize later that, oh no, that doesn't actually work within our organization. So I'd have a think about that as well. The other one is process. So it's all good and well to set up hundreds of teams, but unless your staff are sort of change the way they work, so instead of sending emails with attachments, they now have to go into the chat conversation and share links to documents instead of sending attachments. So those sort of things where you're changing the way people work and you're changing your process and your practices needs to be managed carefully with adoption and change management and bringing your staff along for the journey and using those champions as well. So it's only a quick video. Here are my top 4 tips for setting up and using Teams, and I hope that's helpful for your environment. And I know some of those things might seem like it's a big strategy for just something that's so easy to use and set up, but hopefully those quick and easy 4 things will prevent you from heading down a path that might cause you some issues later. So hopefully that's helped. Now, I'm sure I haven't answered all your questions. So luckily, we've got a webinar scheduled for next Friday where we've got Lolita, who's from Microsoft and a technical specialist in Teams, who's going to tell us a bit more and go into a bit more detail than we did today. So if you can go to the Dog and Bone website, it's a live event, and Friday the 1st at 11 a.m. So put that in your diaries and register online. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.